It's simple. If you want to get ahead of 99% of people in the world, then you need to be willing to do something that 99% of people are not willing to do. You have to, 1, have a contrarian idea, 2, be correct about that idea, and 3, execute on it massively. You have to disagree with everybody and then be right.
Even the iPhone, one of the most iconic product designs of our time, wasn't so clear when it first launched.
$500? That is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard.
Our default response to anything new that we don't know how to respond to is to mock it.
Hey, curious minds. Ever heard of those brilliant people whose ideas were dismissed during their lifetimes, only to become game changers after their deaths? Let's take Ignaz Semmelweis. Picture this: doctors performing examinations on diseased corpses, then delivering babies without washing their hands. Shocking, right? No wonder that in some months as many as 1 out of 3 women were dying in the birthing part of his hospital. But he had a revolutionary idea: doctors washing hands. Although he could not explain why it was effective, because he didn't know about nasty germs being transferred from corpses to patients, he saw that it worked and that patients no longer caught fevers and other diseases. But even significantly cutting death rates in his own hospital by 6 times, even with clearly providing the results, his attempts to spread the word failed. Sadly, not only many people continued to die, because hand washing was not made a routine part of hospital practice, but he was even imprisoned in an insane asylum, where he died 2 weeks later. And when after his death his hospital discarded his crazy ideas and mortality rates went back, increasing 6 times, almost nobody cared. Have you wondered why this type of thing happens over and over again, even when there is clear evidence? Why do people continue to suffer, even ignoring better alternatives despite evidence staring them in the face? Maybe even similar to Ignaz Semmelweis and me, you too have an idea, which you cherish, but others refuse to listen or even trample on. You too are forced to watch how they are killing your baby. Let's start by understanding the underlying truth. Popular means widely accepted. But as with many things, the acceptance follows a classical normal distribution. As you see, in the middle, you've got your well-established ideas like fire is hot and touching it is painful. The ideas, which are understood even by close-minded people with low intellect. But on the fringes, that's where the very unpopular opinions reside. That is why the more open-minded people are, the further out they might end up. Just makes sense that out-of-the-box thinking leads to a widely different approach, which can produce a widely different outcome. Whether such an idea turns out groundbreakingly correct or super false depends on factors such as intellect, available information and tools. That is why just because an idea feels cringe does not mean that it is automatically false. After all, as Edison said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." As owner of more than 1,000 patents, including the light bulb, motion picture camera, and storage battery, he might have known a thing or two about coming up with useful ideas.
Because failure isn't really tolerated in commercial contexts, fear of failure tends to paralyze us all. And it's pretty much impossible to be creative if you're nervous or anxious.
Just shows that even cringe ideas need to be given serious consideration, because very useful insights can be gained from the process. How many genius ideas have been born and then killed in a cradle due to their creators easily dismissing them just because the ideas felt wrong or impossible to achieve? Ever wondered who tends to shape the acceptance curve of new ideas? Regarding technology adoption, the demographic and psychological profiles of each group were originally specified by agricultural researchers in 1956. All starts with innovators who in the original research had larger farms, were more educated, more prosperous, and more risk-oriented. In the nowadays context, new startups.
Most revolutionary creative work is done by people with nothing to lose. They're also usually outsiders.
Then follows early adopters, who were younger, more educated, tended to be community leaders, less prosperous. Nowadays people, who are constantly trying out various new products, such as tech reviewers. Then an early majority, who had more conservative but open to new ideas, active in community, and influence to neighbors. Nowadays people, who are making choices based on reviewers. Then the late majority, who were older, less educated, fairly conservative, and less socially active. Nowadays people, who are making choices based on experiences of people they know. and finally laggards who were very conservative had small farms and capital, the oldest and least educated. Nowadays, people who are using the product because are forced to, such as feeling a pressure from society to adapt, or downright the old technology, is no longer available. As you might have noticed, the rule of thumb is that the older and less educated the person is, the closer minded becomes. Of course, as always, there are exceptions, but in general, the rule holds on. Moreover, when adopting new technology, the rich usually are among the first, because new technologies usually are expensive, and the rich can much more easily afford to make a mistake and walk away relatively unscratched. After all, losing $10,000 for a billionaire is like losing pocket change for a normal person, while losing such money for an average household could spell out huge problems. And even when accepting an idea has no material cost, it still has a mental cost. So in this context, the mentally rich are very mentally resilient. Even if they turn out wrong, they are capable to move on and learn from the experienced. Even if everybody else will judge them, they will continue to go. Quoting the great thinker Beelzebub, anyone giving into peer pressure is a bozo. So, how do we bridge the gap between new genius ideas and society-wide acceptance? As the saying goes, those who do not learn from the past are condemned to repeat it. To break the cycle, besides being right, in general there are two peaceful ways. The new generation replaces the old one, and the new idea outlasts the previous, which takes time and persistence. Another is that the perceived cost of staying the same is too big, because the new thing gives so huge advantages that not using it is perceived as foolish and even threatening survival. Moreover, it's about targeting the right audience at the right time. All starts by getting the idea rolling with innovators, and a little bit later with early adopters, for example, regarding philosophical type ideas. To truly understand them are needed old enough people who have gained enough life experience and significantly mentally developed, but young enough to be open-minded. So the 25-34-year group in general is the best target audience. The undeniable benefit for change might be a better mindset, which creates a much more enjoyable, suffering-free life. Still, one thing is to convince similarly thinking, but totally another differently. Especially due to mind errors like the sunk cost fallacy, which describes the tendency of the human mind to follow through on an endeavor if have already invested time, effort, or money into it, whether or not the current costs outweigh the benefits, which often means going against evidence that shows it is no longer the best decision. Imagine that you bought a concert ticket a few weeks ago for $50. On the day of the concert, you feel sick. You know that you risk getting sicker by going to the concert. Although it seems that the current drawbacks outweigh the benefits, why are you still likely to choose to go to the concert? In economic terms, sunk costs are costs that have already been incurred and cannot be recovered, such as $50 spent on concert tickets would not be recovered whether or not you attended the concert. Therefore, it should not be a factor in current decision-making. It is irrational to use irrecoverable costs to justify a present decision. If we acted rationally, only future costs and benefits would be taken into account. Regardless of what we have already invested, we will not get it back whether or not we follow through on the decision. That is why the sunk cost fallacy means that we are making irrational decisions, because we are factoring in influences other than the current alternatives. The fallacy affects many different areas of our lives, leading to suboptimal outcomes, such as deciding to stay with a partner even if we are unhappy because we have already invested years of our lives with them. Also continuing to spend money renovating an old house, even if it would be cheaper to buy a new one. The sunk cost fallacy occurs because we are not purely rational decision makers, and we are often influenced by our emotions. When we have previously invested in a choice, we will likely feel guilty or regretful if we do not follow through. We fail to consider that whatever time, effort, or money we have already expended will not be recovered. We end up making decisions based on past costs, instead of present and future costs and benefits, which are the only ones that rationally make a difference. The sunk cost fallacy may, in part, occur due to loss aversion, which describes that the impact of losses feels much worse to us than the impact of gains. We are more likely to avoid losses than seek out gains. We may feel that our past investment will be lost if we don't follow through on the decision, and make our choice based on loss aversion rather than consider the benefits gained if we do not continue our commitment. One of the reasons not following through on a decision leads to a feeling of loss is because the situation gets framed together instead of in stages. If we don't follow through on a decision, the narrative is one of failure, even if the subsequent choice not to continue is actually in our best interest. Even if costs are higher when we decide to follow through on a decision, such as going to the concert despite the sickness, we can still frame the narrative as an overall success. Otherwise, the story would be that we wasted $50. Not that we made an intelligent decision for our health and well-being. While it is difficult to overcome the sunk cost fallacy, we can try to focus on current and future costs and benefits instead of past commitment. We should concentrate on concrete actions instead of the feeling of wastefulness or guilt that accompanies dropping an earlier commitment. To better protect yourself, learn about the human brain errors by checking out the link in the description. I love that in the Decision Lab website, not only have been defined the bias and given examples, but also shown a bigger picture about impact of the bias, dive deeper into why the mind error is happening, and given practical advices to more efficiently avoid the bias. The rejection of clear evidences also happened because
your entire show is built around the idea that if you present someone with better information, you can change their mind. But the truth is, disproving a misconception can strengthen a person's belief in that misconception. The backfire effect.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Being proven wrong actually activates the same area of the brain as real physical pain. It hurts so much, it often causes a fight or flight response.
the death of one man is a tragedy. The death of millions is a statistic. This infamous quote by Stalin makes no sense in a world where humans make their decisions rationally, based on unbiased logic. But let me tell you a secret. Our decisions, yes, including yours, are the vast majority of the time driven by emotions and human mind errors. And if you wish to object and claim the opposite, then let's take a step back and reflect on something intriguing. Why do people hate the idea of not being rational beings? What makes emotion-driven decision-making so frowned upon? My best guess is that humans have an innate desire to distinguish themselves from other living creatures by emphasizing their intellectual superiority. So they believe that acting on emotions is something only lower beings do, while only humans possess the extraordinary capability to act purely based on logic. And judging by all the inventions humanity has made, like agriculture and complex architecture, it seems so logical that humans have something special and the rest of animals do not. These facts have given rise to the story of human exceptionalism, granting humans a special place in the grand tapestry of the world. But hold on a second. There's a treasure trove of astonishing facts showcasing the brilliance of other living creatures. Did you know that leafcutter ants have been practicing agriculture for millions of years, including having their own version of fertilizers and pesticides? Or that termite architecture rivals, if not surpasses, human-made castles in complexity, like creating a ventilation system of underground nests without affecting the nest's temperature and humidity levels. Meanwhile, I cannot open a window without the room getting colder. And then there are dolphins finding ways how to get high, also making love for fun, and orcas, just for fun playing with a seal's head like a ball, and having enough detailed language for their mothers to pass down to children, not just instinctual knowledge, but even very specific facts, without each generation having to experience the situation firsthand. But these facts are useless, because do not fit into the story about human exceptionalism, and cognitive dissonance might cause pain. So the ego kicks in, twisting the reality to fit the narrative, such as moving the initial goalpost. For instance, from that only humans can do agriculture and complex architecture, due to how advanced species must be to do so complex things, to downplaying the mental demands of these tasks by pointing out that if even insects can do them, then it could not be something so difficult. But what if we embraced a more captivating and inspiring story? Imagine a thrilling underdog story of how humanity has achieved all this progress, despite the emotional side and mind errors dragging it down, how humans are dominating the other species, even when being much physically weaker, frailer, slower, and so on. Is not it an exploring worth story? Moreover, you might assume that the logical adult conscience is in the driver's seat, while the emotional, childish subconscious is in the passenger seat nagging the driver. But in reality, the opposite is true. The adult at best is in the front passenger seat, but often also in a back seat, or sometimes even stuffed in the trunk. Think about it. What determines whether a glass is half full or half empty? It's your mood, even your general outlook on life, isn't it? If you're feeling pessimistic, you'll focus on what's lacking, seeing the glass as half empty. But if you're filled with hope, you'll perceive what exists, considering the glass as half full. Here's the thing. Adding judgment to observation is the work of the kiddo. True unbiased observation would look more like this. A 200 milliliter glass contains 100 milliliters of water and 100 milliliters of air. In this light, moments of unbiased logic, free from errors, are like small miracles. One of the nastiest kiddos' tricks is to make emotionally driven decisions and fool the adult to use logic to justify them. Clever, isn't it? Because the adult can only handle a very limited amount of information at once, and what the kiddo really does is selectively guide the adult's attention, making the adult notice certain things while ignoring others. But two can play this game. In this case, talk by using the child's language, that is, emotions. That is why stories which resonate with the child have such power and profound impact. Consider this. Arguing can be seen as a zero-sum game, where being right means you're a happy winner and being wrong makes you a miserable loser, making it a story of asserting dominance, filled with hostility. No wonder people perceive an attack on their ideas as a personal attack, causing them to attach their identity to those ideas. But what if we reframed this process? What if we viewed it as an exploration of opinions, a collaborative effort to share insights and uncover the truth? Suddenly, it transforms into a story of curiosity-driven adventure, of humans working together to overcome the limitations of our individual minds. It's through this process that some people acquire wisdom equivalent to 100 lifetimes. Now, do you grasp why words alone can amount to nothing more than vibrations in the air or pixels on a screen if the subconscious can't find meaning in them? Can you understand why certain stories have been passed down for centuries, even millennia? People have been willing to sacrifice their lives to keep them. Here's the deeper truth. You can whack moles all day long, but they'll keep popping up. Instead, we must find the power cord of the machine and unplug it, so those whacked moles don't reappear. Yes, you can confront surface-level problems by improving your arsenal of facts, but there's a much more effective approach. Dig deeper, address the true cause, and create a resonating story supported by facts. Maintain an open dialogue, and instead of fostering a hostile environment, show that you're in it together. From my experience, this is the most profound way to genuinely understand another person's point of view, by asking open-ended questions and refraining from dismissing their answers prematurely. Talking about cognitive biases and to be more transparent, in order to spread the message more effectively, I have exploited the human brain errors in this video. Avoid underestimating the tricks of the kiddo by thinking that you are immune to them. For example, by framing acceptance of new ideas in the context of rich, smart, and mentally strong first, trying out new things. If you questioned the premise, then you would find people who were on the other side of the spectrum, such as oblivious Columbus, who thought that has reached India, showing that even a stopped clock is right twice a day. Another trick is to build on foundations of old, because it makes the transition much smaller. For example, when the Catholic Church wished that local Baltic pagans much easier accepted new festivals, they overlapped with pre-established festivals, such as winter solstice celebration became Christmas, Jesus' birthday. That is why exploring new ideas through already widely accepted things, such as pop culture, much easier breaches the gap. Besides fragile egos, the human brain errors and so on obstructing to see the truth, sometimes it comes down to invested interest. People benefiting from the old way, even if it is net negative. That is why sometimes peaceful means are not enough in the face of evil and a revolution is needed. But that opens a different can of worms, because the path to hell can be paved with good intentions. I am eager to know your opinion. Why do you think people and societies embrace new ideas? Is this channel so underrated because it is on the fringes of the curve? Is Beelzebub right by saying that conservative collective consciousness is useful because it is a safeguard of a society, and people just mistreat it as a dogma, an unshakable belief that something is true, regardless of proof? Share your thoughts in the comment section below, and let's keep the conversation going. After all, to be on the fringes of the curve can be a lonely road. Hope that together we can unlock the secrets of societal change and pave the way for a brighter future. Remember to keep questioning, analyzing, and innovating. And if you want more thought-provoking videos, then check out this.